Hey there, this is Hunter Riley, author of Stack Silver, Get Gold. Today I'm here with Andy Schectman from Miles Franklin. He's the big man over there. He's calling in today. How are you doing, Andy?
I'm well, Hunter. Summer's finally here in Minnesota, so happy
Yeah.
to be here.
Um, just really quickly today, I wanted to ask you a few things. And the first question I have for you is, if I was a beginning investor, or even better, you're the big expert here. So if you were a beginning precious metals investor going to go out and buy gold and silver for the first time, what are the foundational, the must characteristics you want to look for in a precious metals dealer?
Well, I would hope that our company embodies that. Honesty, integrity, reputation. First and foremost, it's very important to understand that on a federal level, the precious metals industry is federally non-regulated. It means there's no oversight. And that's probably why in the last 4 years, we've seen two or three of the biggest online retailers disappear, their presidents and owners put in prison, and upward ends of almost $200 million evaporated.
Was that Bullion Direct or Tulving?
That was Bullion Direct, Tulving, and Northwest Territorial Mint. Those were the three biggest online companies really in the space. And the one thing that they all had in common was inordinately cheap prices. I think that when you're trying to price shop, you know, if it's within reason of the competition, it's typically a good starting point. If someone is far too high or far too low, there's a problem. And I think it's, you can use the analogy of a heart surgeon or an attorney fighting for your life. I don't think you immediately would look for the least expensive outfit. So when you look at the fact that the industry is federally non-regulated, the reputation should be very important. I can say that Miles Franklin has been in business for 29 years and never received a customer complaint ever. Your listeners could spend all afternoon Googling it and wouldn't find one. The Better Business Bureau is a good place to start as well. We've never had a complaint in 29 years, but it's important to take a look at that because sometimes you'll find a lot of information that's important. Bottom line is this: when you're trying to work with a company in this space, reputation is everything, not pricing. State of Minnesota takes it one step further, by the way, and that is that it's the only state in the United States that regulates the precious metals industry. As such, if you send any metal into the state of Minnesota, or as a company in the state send it out, you have to be licensed, bonded, and background checked through the Commissioner of Commerce. And it is the only state to employ that. And most of the competitors outside the state of Minnesota have boycotted the state. The issue of bonding, background checks, and licensing is somewhat onerous. It's costly. It's invasive. And most of the competition that we face outside Minnesota figures it's better to focus on all the other states and let Minnesota go. So we embrace it. It protects the consumer. Our reputation is amongst the best. And so from a standpoint of model, I think Miles Franklin is a good one in a state that regulates the industry and a company that's never had any complaints whatsoever in 29 years.
29 years, wow. And yeah, I think you're right. It's a lot of people go online when they're first buying, they're looking for the lowest price dealer that they can find. And in one of those examples, I forget what it was, Tulving or Bullion Direct, there were like 6,000 buyers who actually lost their metal or had to give it back. Wasn't that the case?
Yeah, that's the part right there. The give back is the worst. So imagine, if you will, you send a company a check for $100,000, you receive your gold, and 45 days later you get a letter from a bankruptcy judge or court saying you hereby have to return that metal or you're in violation of federal bankruptcy law. And if you don't, they're going to come after you. Now, you return that metal back and you get a pro rata share along with everyone else if it's within 90 days, I believe, of the bankruptcy filing. So a lot of people got nothing. Some people got back pennies on the dollar. we talked to a poor fellow just the other day who got back a bunch of certified quarters, the silver quarters, the state quarters. He had invested $75,000, and in total, I might have been able to get him $750 back. So yeah, it's a real thing, and it doesn't take much investigation on the web, on the internet, to validate what we're saying here, and it really is important. And you know, some companies have real deals. Maybe they bought something cheap and they can sell it cheap. But a company that just sticks out as the cheapest all the time, it's not a good business model. It's not one that typically is one to emulate, because it's very difficult to pay rent, to stay in business and do things ethically in the right way when business slows down. And we've seen that in the last 18 months, like you and I were just talking about off air. The Dow Jones 26,000, the Bitcoin, and the lack of substantive performance over the last several years by gold has created a lot of selling in the industry, putting more pressure on companies just to keep the lights on. And so when you're constantly looking at the least expensive, especially in a soft market, it's totally buyer beware. And that's not a scare tactic. That's real. That's for sure.
And you guys check all the boxes basically anybody else out there has. And then because you're based in Minnesota, you go above and beyond that with the background checks for the brokers and whatever the stringent Minnesota regulations are, the extra regulations.
Yeah, so it's background checks, and not just the brokers, but the principals, bonding, and continuing compliance and education that really no one else has to abide by. We're held to a higher standard, I guess you could say, and so somewhat akin to what a securities broker is held to. It doesn't. By the way, it's important to note, this is an industry that attracts people who like privacy. It does not, in any shape or form, denigrate our clients' privacy. It just means that we as a company are held to a higher standard, and if we are ever audited, we better darn sure have done things the right way. And the state of Minnesota is going to great lengths to make sure that people in this industry are not ripped off the way that others have done in the last few years.
Yeah, I like that. And the privacy, I'm a big fan of that, especially. I'm also a big fan of your safe deposit box program, but we can talk about that another time.
Sure.
Just off the air, you were giving me an excellent tip. I wonder, it's currently late May of 2018, and you were giving me a great tip. I wonder if you can give that to everybody else here.
Yeah, sure. I think that when I look back over the last almost 30 years that I've been doing this, it's frightening to say that it's been that long. I think that some of one of the key things that has made me successful has been understanding, identifying, and exploiting anomalies. And we've seen them throughout time in this industry. Every few years, an anomaly will pop up. And currently, there are several of them right now in terms of price. But the one that is most striking to me, I mean, of course, you could talk fundamentally, the silver to gold ratio, the gold to platinum ratio, the platinum to palladium ratio. All of these time-tested ratios or measurements against one another are way out of whack, way out of whack. However, when you look at product-specific anomalies, the numismatic market is something that has really carried a bad stigma for the past 15 years. And numismatic coins are typically associated in the public's eye with companies that overcharge and use scare tactics regarding confiscation to get people to buy old collector coins that they'll never get the premium back out of. And to some degree, there's some truth in that. Just like anything, if you can get a good deal and meet an honest dealer, some of that can be dispelled quickly. But let's just leave that as it be. Right now, for the first time in my entire career, premiums on the pre-1933 numismatic gold coins are as low as, in some cases, lower than gold bullion. I have never said that. in 29 years of business. Typically, even in the heart of a 25-year bear market in the 90s, those coins were trading at a 10 to 15% premium to gold eagles, never at on par or below gold eagles. And in 2008 and 9, actually the end of '07, all of '08 and '09, these coins were trading as high as 50, 60, 70% premium above gold melt. And so the anomaly, Hunter, is that for the first time in my career, numismatic coins are, I think, a better value than gold bullion, something I thought I'd never say. And when you talk about value for the dollar spent, you're buying 100-plus-year-old coins, in many cases that are uncirculated, that have always carried a higher value than their gold bullion counterparts, that, according to the executive order, the way the laws are written today, are immune or sheltered from confiscation, carry no dealer reporting requirements on purchase or sellback. All the way around, probably a better choice, and they're cooler to look at, and they're the same price or less than gold eagles. That is as stark of an anomaly or a disconnection from reality as anything I've seen in my entire career.
Yep. Same price as gold eagles. That's crazy.
It is crazy when you consider that in 2008, with $1,000 gold, a gold eagle would have been $1,050, and a mint state 62, which is an uncirculated $20 gold piece, would have been $1,600 to $1,700. So the difference is fantastic. And even in the midst of the bear market in the 90s, with $400 gold, these coins would have been $450, $460, which percentage-wise, still 10% above a gold eagle. Right now, they're on par or less. And so it's you're looking for opportunities in this industry that's as good as one as I've ever seen.
Oh, and people can call you guys up and you can help them with that?
Yes, we have a website, but we prefer to do things the old-fashioned way. Until they pull us out kicking and screaming, we do like a relationship-based business where you call in, we'll lock that in for you on a verbal handshake, send you an invoice, and you can pay by ACH or wire. We ship everything out to you, and we've got it down. We are privacy-oriented. If clients would prefer to do it online, we can. But the best way to give us a call at 800-822-8080. Ask to speak to a broker or myself personally, and we will not only take your order gladly, but first and foremost, we'll take the time to get to know the client and educate them and answer their questions without an agenda to begin with.
I do like that, and you know what else I like about you guys is that I can call Miles Franklin up, ask for Andy, and sometimes they will transfer me directly to your cell phone.
Well, most time they should, and that's one of the things that I try to say to people. In fact, I'm glad you said that. And for the people listening, we did not rehearse this, I promise you. The only thing that makes me different than any other gold company in the country, really, aside from our Minnesota accreditation and our reputation, is accessibility. And I try to make myself, as the owner of the company and the president of the company, someone who's pretty busy most days, accessible at all hours, really, within reason. And the accessibility is something that's very important to me personally. I guess, Hunter, when you start something from scratch, as we did in 1989, my father and I, on a whim and a prayer, a loan from a friend, and my parents cashed out their life insurance policies. We come from nothing, Hunter. The Miles in Miles Franklin is my father's middle name. Franklin is his best friend who loaned us $60,000. We paid him back a couple of years later, bought him out, and we're kind of the, I guess you could say, the epitome of the American dream. We started with a loan and nothing. We've recently eclipsed north of $5 billion in sales and never had a customer complaint. We did it the right way. But when you build something like that from scratch and remember what it's like to really struggle, you try to make yourself accessible. At least I do. And I've never forgotten what it's like to struggle, and we don't ever want to do that again. And so we try to make ourselves accessible, and we're always accountable. those are the two things that I can promise, at least in my mind, that differentiate us from others.
I love it. Okay, so milesfranklin.com is the website. Anybody listening, just go ahead and do a Google search. Try to find one complaint on Andy and the team. You won't. I looked for my book. That's why I put them in the back of the book. I couldn't find anything. Now, what's the phone number they can call?
800-822-8080. I did want to mention one other quick thing. You brought up the Brinks account. Without going into it, we have 2 special programs with Brinks in Canada. You can find the websites as www.preciousmetal, singular, preciousmetalstorage.net or www.privatesafedepositboxes.net, privatesafedepositboxes.net. They're 2 different programs. One is safe deposit boxes, as you mentioned. The other is segregated storage in a vault. Both of them are also our, I guess you'd say they are offshoots of Miles Franklin, and we're very proud of those 2, so people can check that out as well.
Awesome, Andy. Well, thank you very much for being here. We'll definitely do another interview on both those storage programs in the future.
Love to do that, and we also have a great new blockchain gold program that we can talk about on our next interview.
Just blowing things up. Okay, good to talk to you, Andy. See ya.
Thank you, Hunter. All the best to you, brother.